At my daughter's wedding. She pulled me aside and said, "Mom, my husband doesn't want you here. You need to leave now." I walked out without a word. Drove home in silence. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just sat in my car in the driveway for hours, wondering what I'd done wrong. The next morning, my phone rang. It was her. "Mom, I need the property papers. We have a business plan. We're going to develop the farm." I took a breath and gave her 4 words that changed everything. Words that made her realize who her husband really was. Hey everyone, before we start, hit subscribe if you're interested in real family stories. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Quick note, this story contains some fictional elements for storytelling purposes, but the message is completely real. If it resonates with you, you're not alone. The pen feels too heavy in my hand. Not because of its weight, it's just a regular ballpoint, nothing fancy. But as I stare down at the signature line waiting for me, it might as well be made of lead. My fingers hover over the paper and I notice they're trembling. Outside the window, rain taps against the glass in August's impatient rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Like someone's fingers drumming on a desk, waiting for an answer, waiting for me to make a choice I can't take back. My phone buzzes again. I don't look at it. I already know who it is. Alexis, my only daughter, 23 years old, has been lighting up that screen for 3 days straight now. 52 calls. I've counted every single one. By now, she's probably lost track herself. Susan Matthews sits across from me, patient as a saint. She's been my lawyer for 2 years, ever since Leonard passed, and I needed help understanding the paperwork he left behind. She's the kind of woman who's seen everything. Women who come to her office carrying invisible weights on their shoulders. Women who have to choose between their hearts and their survival. "Take your time, Joyce," she says softly, pushing a glass of water toward me. There's no rush. But there is. There always is. I look back at the papers spread across her mahogany desk. I've read every page twice, maybe 3 times. The words irrevocable and permanent are printed in bold as if the lawyers knew that women like me need the reminder. Once I sign, there's no going back. Not for anything. Not for anyone. The smell of her perfume. Something floral expensive fills the small office. It's different from my world of antiseptic halls and hospital linens. Different from the Georgia clay that never quite washes out from under my fingernails, no matter how hard I scrub. I lift the pen again. 4 words. That's all it took to destroy everything I thought I understood about my daughter. For words spoken by Alexis's own mouth 1 year into her marriage to a man I barely knew. For simple words that made me realize I didn't know her at all anymore. But that's not where this story starts. Not really. The real story began 3 weeks ago on a sweltering August morning when I drove 90 minutes to a wedding venue outside Atlanta. The story began with a champagne glass trembling in my hands and my daughter asking me to leave. Leonard, my late husband, gone now 14 years. He used to say that sometimes the most important moments in life don't announce themselves. They arrive quietly, disguised as ordinary days. He said, "You never know which decision will be the one that matters, which choice will echo across the rest of your life." Leonard understood legacy. He understood what it meant to hold something precious and fragile in your hands. Standing in this office now, pen suspended above paper, I finally understand what he meant. I'm ready, I tell Susan. She nods, reaching for her own pen to witness whatever I'm about to do. Before you hear what happens next, before you know what those 4 words are, you need to understand how I got here. You need to feel what I felt standing in that wedding venue holding a champagne glass that wasn't mine to break. Watching my only child turn away from me like I was a stranger. You need to know about the sacrifice. You need to know about the land that doesn't belong to me anymore. 3 weeks earlier, my alarm went off at 4:47 a.m. I didn't need it. I'd been awake since 4, staring at the ceiling of my bedroom, watching the darkness soften into grey. My heart had been pounding for hours. The kind of nervous energy that comes before something important, before your child's wedding day. I slipped out of bed quietly, though there was no one there to wake. Just the sound of the Georgia morning settling around the farmhouse crickets, still singing the heat, already building even in August's pre-dawn darkness. In the kitchen, I spread the dress across the back of the chair. Navy blue knee-length, the kind of formal thing I never wore. $200. I'd counted out the cash at the store, and the cashier's eyes had flickered with something pity maybe as she rang it up. I didn't let it bother me then. Alexis had specifically asked for formal attire for the family, and I wasn't going to show up to my only child's wedding looking anything less than put together. My hands shook a little as I buttoned it up. Not from cold, from something else, something I couldn't quite name. In my purse, tucked carefully into an envelope, was the wedding gift, $12,000. Every overtime shift I'd picked up at the hospital over the past year. Every weekend, I'd skipped my own rest. Every time I'd stood on my feet until they swelled, helping families who needed in-home care so I could save this money for my daughter's special day. $12,000 meant to represent all the years of love, sacrifice, and belief in her future. I'd planned to hand it to her quietly during the reception. During one of those rare moments when we might be alone together, I imagined the conversation, how I'd tell her how proud I was, how much her father would have loved to see this, how beautiful she looked as a bride, Leonard. The thought of him always came. At moments like this. He'd been gone 14 years now, but sometimes I could still hear his voice. She's going to be such a beautiful woman, Joyce, he'd said when Alexis was born. You're going to be so proud. I grabbed my purse and keys. The drive to Atlanta took an hour and a half from Bibb County. I left at 5:15 before the sun had finished rising and pointed my old sedan toward the city. The road was mostly empty, just me and a few truckers headed the same direction. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I drove, and I tried to settle the flutter in my chest. Why was I so nervous? My father used to say that a mother knows things. That instinct runs deeper than logic. Trust your gut, Joyce. He'd told me years ago when I was young and scared of making the wrong choices. Your body knows what your mind hasn't figured out yet. But my gut was telling me that everything would change. That today would matter in ways I couldn't predict. I pushed the thought away and focused on the road. The wedding venue was a beautiful place. A converted barn with ivy crawling up the stone walls and massive windows that let in the August light. Alexis had found it online months ago and immediately called to tell me about it. She'd sounded so happy then, so full of dreams. I pulled into the parking lot at 9:45 a.m., nearly 2 hours early. Perfect time to help with whatever needed doing. As I stepped out of the car and smoothed down my navy dress, I could see them already, the florists arranging towering displays of white roses, the caterers carrying boxes toward the kitchen entrance, the event coordinator moving from station to station with her tablet clutched to her chest. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Not the actual ceremony, though I wanted to see that, too. But this moment right here, being needed, being useful, being part of something bigger than myself. It was only later, after everything fell apart, that I'd understand those early morning hours differently, that I'd realized. My unease hadn't been warning me about what was coming. It had been something else entirely. It had been goodbye. The receiving line had dissolved by 9 o'clock. The DJ had cranked up something with heavy bass, and all around me, people were laughing, distant cousins, Alexis's college friends, Christopher's family. I was still in my navy dress, standing near the dessert station with a glass of water. That's when I spotted them. Alexis and Christopher, my daughter, and her new husband, were moving through the crowd like they owned the room. Alexis was laughing, her white dress pristine. Christopher had his hand on her back, guiding her with the easy confidence of a man used to being in control. They looked happy. I moved toward them, weaving between tables. I just wanted to catch my daughter's eye, maybe steal a moment alone with her, the moment I'd been imagining all morning. Alexis, sweetheart. I started reaching for her arm. Her face changed instantly. Not the radiant bride anymore. Something shuddered behind her eyes. She glanced at Christopher, then back to me, and I saw her shoulders stiffen. Mom, she used the word like a warning. Can we talk for a minute? I asked softly. Just the two of us. Alexis's jaw tightened. She took a step back from me, and that small movement cut through me like a knife. Christopher doesn't want you here, she said quietly. The words didn't make sense. I laughed, actually laughed, because surely she meant something else. What do you mean? I asked. He doesn't want me. Where? Here at the reception. Alexis's voice was flat like she was reading from a script. He says you're always trying to control everything, that you make him uncomfortable. I couldn't breathe. Alexis, I haven't even spoken to Christopher since the ceremony. I know, but he saw the way you were looking at things. He said you were giving off a controlling energy. Controlling energy from a woman who'd contributed money she didn't have. From a woman who'd been here since before sunrise to help Con. I only came early because you asked me to. I know, Mom. For just a moment, Alexis's voice softened. Maybe this was a misunderstanding. Maybe she'd come back to me. But Christopher thinks it would be better if you left. The word hung between us, left. He thinks, I repeated slowly. Or you think Alexis wouldn't meet my eyes. I'm sorry, Mom. I really am. But you have to go now. I opened my mouth, closed it. My hands were shaking. I could see them trembling at my sides like they belonged to someone else. Okay, I heard myself say. My voice sounded very far away. I didn't hug her. Didn't kiss her cheek. Didn't say any of the things I'd planned all morning. I just turned and walked back through the reception, my heels clicking against the marble, a sound like a countdown, like a clock marking the end of something. The lobby was cooler, quieter. The glass doors opened onto the parking lot, and the August heat hit me like a physical force. I sat in my car for a long time. I didn't turn on the engine. I didn't cry. I just sat there, my hands gripping the wheel, my navy dress suddenly feeling like armor that hadn't protected me at all. Outside, the Georgia sun beat down on the windshield. Inside, everything had gone very, very cold. Finally, I turned the key in the ignition. The engine rumbled to life beneath the hood of my sedan, 14 years old, now reliable as Leonard had always been. I sat for a moment in the parking lot of that elegant venue, my hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing left in my world around me. The late August evening pressed down with humid weight. The sky had turned that particular shade of purple-gray that comes just before real darkness settles in. No radio, no podcasts, no music playing softly to fill the silence. Just me, the road, and the questions that wouldn't stop circling. The tires hummed against the asphalt as I merged onto the highway heading south toward Bibb County. The sound of the engine, steady and mechanical, became the only voice I wanted to hear. The wind whispered through the cracked window I'd never gotten around to fixing that. And somewhere in that familiar landscape of rural Georgia, I was supposed to find my way back home. What did I do wrong? The question arrived without warning, uninvited and sharp. It lodged itself in my chest like something that had been thrown there with force. For 30 years, I'd worked the night shifts at the hospital. 12-hour stretches on my feet, my compression socks digging into my calves, my back screaming by R9. I'd come home at dawn to a quiet house and Alexis, my baby girl, already up for school, her backpack waiting by the door. How much did I sacrifice for her? Every dollar had mattered. I'd save those $12,000 in that white envelope one shift at a time. Summer camps, new clothes when hers wore thin. Ballet lessons she'd asked for in middle school, even though we couldn't quite afford them. When Leonard died 14 years ago, when she was only 9 years old, I'd never once let her feel the weight of grief without someone holding her through it. That someone was always me. Why did she treat me like that? My hands trembled slightly on the wheel. I noticed it with a strange detachment as if I was observing someone else's hands. My jaw had clenched so tightly I could feel the muscle working beneath my skin. But I wasn't crying. Crying would have been easier somehow. Crying would have been a release. Instead, I sat with this cold, hollow feeling, the kind of silence that echoes louder than any scream. The highway stretched ahead of me mile after mile of darkness, broken only by the occasional set of headlights, passing in the opposite direction. I thought about the nights Leonard and I had made this drive together, how he'd always insisted on driving so I could rest. He'd play classical music softly on the radio and reach over to squeeze my hand. "You're a good mother," he'd told me once. "Alexis is lucky to have you." But Alexis didn't feel lucky today, and I wasn't feeling like a good mother. The road wound through familiar territory, past the small towns whose names I knew by heart, past the turnoffs I'd memorized decades ago, an hour and a half. That was all it took to get from that beautiful venue in Atlanta back to my real life. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, except for the porch light I'd left burning before I'd left that morning. Was it just this morning? It felt like years ago. I sat in the car, the engine still running, staring at those weathered boards and the front door that suddenly felt like a stranger's door. I couldn't go inside yet. Something was shifting inside me. Something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't anger exactly. It was colder than that, more purposeful. And tomorrow morning, I could feel it coming like a storm on the horizon. Tomorrow, everything was going to change again. But tonight, I just sat in the darkness and listened to the wind. The morning sun was already brutal by 8:30 a.m. I was on my knees in the garden behind the house, my hands deep in the soil pulling at the weeds that had overtaken the vegetable beds while I was gone. The dirt was warm and damp, and there was something almost meditative about the work. The simple repetitive motion of yanking unwanted growth from the earth. It was easier to focus on the weeds than to think about yesterday. Easier to let my muscles ache than to feel the hollow space that had opened up inside my chest. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I almost didn't answer. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me check. And when I saw Alexis's name on the screen, I wiped my hands on my jeans and picked up. Mom. Her voice sounded different. Not angry like it had been at the venue, not cold. Instead, she sounded rushed, energetic even. I'm sorry about yesterday. I have an important question for you. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting. I'm listening, sweetheart. What is it? Mom, can you send me the property documents? The ones about the land? The words didn't make sense at first. I held the phone closer to my ear, certain I'd misheard. Property documents. Alexis. What are you talking about? The farm, Mom. The one Grandpa bought. We need it. My hands went cold despite the heat of the morning. I moved toward the porch, needing to sit down. Your farm. The one Leonard's father bought, sweetheart. Why would you? We have a big project, she interrupted, and I could hear something else in her voice now, a tone I'd never heard from my daughter before. It was businesslike, detached. Christopher and we want to develop real estate. I sat down on the porch step, the phone pressed tight against my ear. What do you mean develop real estate? We could subdivide it, she said, and the words came quickly now, like she'd rehearsed them. Into maybe 12, 15 lots. We'll build modern homes on the property, modern houses. Mom, this would be a huge project. The returns would be enormous. I couldn't speak. My mind felt foggy, like I was trying to understand words in a language I'd never learned. This was Alexis, my Alexis, who'd spent her childhood riding her bicycle around that farm, who'd helped me plant tomatoes in the summer, who understood what that land meant to our family. Alexis, I finally managed. Can you explain this more? Yesterday, you didn't say anything about, Mom, we need an answer soon. There was an edge to her voice now, impatient. There's an investor interested. This is time sensitive. The words landed like stones in still water, each one creating ripples that disturbed everything around it. I'd been thrown out of my daughter's wedding just 16 hours ago, and now she wanted the one piece of my family's history I had left. The land that Leonard had entrusted to me, the legacy that stretched back 70 years. Alexis, I need time to Mom, she said, and her voice suddenly softened, became almost sweet. But that's not even the biggest part. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? Christopher wants to tell you something himself. And Mom, I think you need to know what he's really offering. The line crackled with static. Or maybe that was just the rushing sound of everything I thought I knew, crumbling. Mom, we will take care of you, Alexis said. And I could hear something shifting in her tone. Something harder. We're going to split the money with you. 40%. You'll make at least $200,000, maybe more. $200,000. The number hung in the air between us, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. Not because I was tempted, but because I was confused. My daughter, the girl I'd raised, the one who'd cried in my arms when her father died, was talking about our family land like it was a commodity, like it was something to be sliced up and sold to the highest bidder. Alexis, I said quietly, that's not just property. That's our legacy. Your great-grandfather bought that land in 1954. It's been in our family for 70 years. Mom, if you don't cooperate. She paused and I heard her take a breath. When she spoke again, her voice had gone completely flat. Christopher said, I need to be honest with you. My chest tightened. Honest about what? If you don't help us, he's going to have to tell people that you're controlling, that you have an unhealthy need to keep me under your thumb. He's going to say that you won't let us live our own lives, that you're manipulative. I stood up from the porch step, my legs suddenly unsteady. Alexis, that's a direct threat. It's not a threat, Mom. It's reality. That's what he'll have to do. The words have to landed like a slap, as if Christopher Sterling was some passive observer forced into this position, as if my daughter's husband, a man I'd only just met, was being compelled by circumstances beyond his control to destroy my reputation. Listen to me, I said, and my voice sounded strange, even to my own ears, thin, old. Your husband is a stranger to me. I don't know him. I don't know what